Friday, June 6th, and I'm just wondering if we can get the insights from Dallas Stars play-by-play voice Josh Bogorad into that stunning end of the Stars season.
And now, a word from our title sponsor.
Eyeing retirement? Let us show you how to turn your nest egg into a paycheck with half the amount you've been led to believe. Fluent Financial combines in-house portfolio design and risk management with income-generating investments designed to accelerate your financial independence. Let us develop an effective portfolio strategy that works for you so you can retire sooner and have a better lifestyle. Fluent Financial can also implement a program that allows business owners to install a cash balance plan, which is designed to help drastically reduce income tax payments. You've worked hard to become successful. Let us develop an effective portfolio strategy that works for you. Learn more today about Fluent Financial. Retire sooner, better lifestyle. For more information or to schedule a meeting, visit fluentfinancial.com or call 972-852-4800.
This is Josh Bogorad, and he's just finished his 7th season as a voice of the Dallas Stars. He's LA-born and University of Arizona educated. He began his career covering the LA Kings and then doing hockey play-by-play in hockey out-of-the-way places like Corpus Christi, Texas, and Anchorage, Alaska, calling the Alaska Aces games before joining the Stars in their broadcast and telecast in 2013 and ascending to the voice of the Stars in 2018. Joshua, thank you very much for your time today.
Norm, it's always a pleasure. I was trying in my lead up to Dallas to just find the southern and northernmost possible places that I could be before landing here. So I feel like I got pretty close if I didn't nail it.
Josh, before we get to the Stars, hockey's a winter sport. And would you tell us what broadcasting the Alaska Anchorage Aces was like in winter?
Yeah, I mean, it was winter. I know in Dallas, we joke that we don't really get all 4 seasons. Maybe we get like 3 weeks of spring and 3 weeks of fall. In Alaska, you definitely get your share of winter. It was such a great time. I went up there not knowing what to expect. I went up there because the job opportunity that I had was a fantastic job. And when you're in my line of work, which is broadcasting at lower levels, and just you go where the best opportunity is. I think so many people in this industry are familiar with that. So Anchorage and the Aces, that was what that afforded me. And I didn't know what life was going to be like outside of that. I just went exclusively for the job. And what I found was it was such an amazing out of work experience too. The city I loved. I made some friends that I'll have for life. I got to see and do some of the most unique things you could ever imagine. I was there for 3 years, and I feel like in those 3 years, the one-of-a-kind experiences I got will rival the rest of my life put together. It was just a fantastic place, a great organization. The job was everything I wanted it to be. But, I mean, you get acclimated and you get used to it. But, yeah, I mean, you're dealing with negative temperatures all the time and the sun going down at 3:30 in December and not coming up till 10:30 a.m. the next day. And it's different. And then the summers are amazing because it's the inverse of that. And you can go golfing and have a 10:30 p.m. tee time and get all 18 in. So it's a pretty great spot. I loved it. I will always love it. My oldest son was born there. It'll always feel a little bit like home. And I can't say enough good things about it.
You grew up in L.A., where there are the Dodgers, the Angels, the Lakers, the Rams, the Chargers. How does young Josh grow up a hockey nut?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it was kind of happenstance. I grew up a fan of all sports, and that's first. Like I'm a sports fan across the board. So even to this day, it's not just exclusively hockey. There is so much wonderful entertainment out there across the board if you're a sports fan. But I was a kid. I was in elementary school, and I got I got invited to an old LA Kings game and went and didn't know anything about the sport. And a buddy of mine, his uncle had season tickets. The barn was probably 3/4 full, if that. But I just remember watching it and being a sports fan, but never having been introduced to hockey at that point. The speed and the power and the sheer entertainment value from a spectator standpoint. I just remember watching that game and looking at the ice and thinking, I want more of that. I want to know what's going on here, and I want to come back and see this. And I think it's one of the coolest things, Norm, the fact that my career, I had no idea where it was going to take me. I decided I wanted to be a hockey play-by-play broadcaster a long time ago after I fell in love with the sport. But it'll always be traced back to that experience and that feeling. And so the fact that my career had me land in Dallas, which is the quote non-traditional hockey market, and it's such a good market, but not traditional, that to this day, every year, multiple people will come up to me and say, hey, I went to my first game this year, and man, I can't believe this was here the whole time and I didn't know about it. And I never get tired of hearing that comment. It's probably my favorite thing that I hear because it resonates with me. I remember that feeling. And I love when a hockey community grows and more people get introduced to it the same way I did. Because I urge people, if you're watching this and you're a sports fan, and obviously you've heard of the Stars and like you maybe watch it come playoff time and when it's on, you'll flip it on. There's just such an amazing feeling when it hooks you. If you watch more of it, if you come to a game, if you tune in regularly on Victory Plus, it's such a fantastic sport. And I say this again as a fan of all sports. It's not to diminish any other one, but there's something about hockey, the way it can grab you and the energy in that building and the power and the grace and the pace of everything. I love hearing that from people, and I love the fact that it happens all the time in a place like Dallas.
Now, on to the Stars. Were you as stunned by the collapse of the Stars in the last 4 games of the Edmonton series where they were outscored 19-6?
Yeah, I mean, in a word, yes. Yes, I really was, Norm. I think that everybody close to it that followed this team all year long, that's followed them for this 3-year run of back-to-back-to-back trips to the Final Four in the Western Conference Final. I was completely stunned. And I think that most people probably are feeling the same way that I was, which is you want a do-over. And unfortunately, you don't get one because I do still believe that they had the pieces, that the team in its construction was good enough to get through a true Stanley Cup contender in Colorado and the best team in the regular season from start to finish in the Winnipeg Jets. They didn't just luck their way through that. Tip your cap to Edmonton. They're a deserved Stanley Cup finalist. We'll see how the final plays out in the rematch. They were outstanding. They were more than Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but those two guys definitely left their fingerprints all over it. So it's not to take anything away from Edmonton. But yeah, I was completely stunned because it was a team that they overcame every obstacle, and there were a number of them that came their way this year. And it was a team that was so strong from the net out, and they were so deep up front. And I just couldn't envision a scenario where those 4 games were going to play out in the fashion that they did. I think I thought the Stars were going to win the series. I truly did. But even if you were going to concoct a scenario that they didn't, I don't think anybody, including people on the Edmonton side or people that would have predicted them, saw it playing out in that fashion. And I think that that's what it came as such a shock, is that nobody could have foreseen it playing out the way it actually did play out.
Josh, this Stars team has incredible offensive players. Rantanen, Duchesne, Johnston, Marchment. Now, Robertson had a nice series, but you keep going up. Ben Dadanoff. What happened to the offense on this team?
It's a great question, and Norm, I think it's one that they'll be asking themselves all summer long until they get a chance to run it back next year. Because I think that's if you had to dial it down to a few of the shocking things, and there were a lot. I mean, it wasn't just that, but I think that's the biggest storyline is what you mentioned. The penalty kill struggled against what has been a historically good power play. And, they were a historically good penalty killing unit and then kind of just bent and broke. They ran into the greatest week and a half of Stuart Skinner's life in the Edmonton net. And all of these things in a short sample size, it's a playoff series, to put it into baseball terms, right? If you're an MVP candidate, but you go 1 for 20 in a series, like all of a sudden, that's all it takes. If you do that over a 4-5 game stretch in a 162 game season, it's a blip on the radar. But for all of those players to kind of all be silenced at the exact same time was just a storyline that was hard to fathom happening. And then we all watched it play out. And I think, again, that's kind of, you laid it out, the shock. I don't know what happened. Part of this is, the Edmonton Oilers deserve a lot of credit because in the third period, when they had a lead, they gave Dallas nothing. And it's a team that will always be headlined by McDavid and Draisaitl and their offense, but they were outstanding as a lockdown team defensively, protecting leads in the third period. They truly did it as well as anybody in the league could have done. And I don't think that too many people would hold Edmonton in that regard if you were going to rank everyone in that category. And they were, and they deserved it. So a ton of credit should go to them. But I think that the Stars, with their depth scoring, their spread out scoring, their high end ability, all of the guys, they were a roster that was constructed where you would say, all right, if 6 guys go quiet, then you still have 4 that can win a series on their own. And it just didn't manifest that way.
Josh, were you surprised that the coach Pete DeBoer pulled Jake Ottinger 7 minutes into Game 5 after he had allowed 2 goals on the only 2 shots Edmonton took?
I didn't see that storyline coming just because of what Jake had been all playoffs long and what he's meant to this team all season. But I also was surprised at so much of that. I was surprised, backpedal it, that the Stars were down 2-0. That 7 minutes in a must-win game on home ice, that they were even in that spot where that decision had to get made. But sure, I was surprised. I think everybody in that building was surprised because I don't think when we were getting ready for that game and an opportunity to keep their season alive, I don't think anyone had on their bingo card that they'd be in that size of a hole that quickly. And a guy like Jake Ottinger would wind up on the bench. To the Stars' credit, they still made it a game after that. But that was kind of part of the story of the season. It's a tough way to live. That's a tough way to live when you're constantly chasing. And Dallas was constantly chasing. They never once had the lead in any of those 4 games that they lost in a row.
Josh, Jim Nill, the general manager, gave up a ton of assets to acquire Mikko Rantanen and Michael Granlund and Cody Ceci to support this club as it headed for the playoffs. But the flip side of that now is that the Stars have, I think you can say, pretty significant salary cap problems going forward. Are there some veterans who played their last game in this Edmonton series?
It's always a possibility. I mean, there's always going to be change, and we live in a cap world in the sport of hockey where sometimes those decisions are business decisions driven by dollars rather than by ability and who you would want back. So That's a fair question that they've got to figure out. I mean, they had a number of veterans who some were acquired via trade, like you mentioned. I think they would love to keep some of them around, and then there's others that probably will be casualties of that. Look, the reality, Norm, you and I know this. We've been around sports long enough. No team comes back exactly the same as they did when they played their final game. Even in a non-cap world, it's only exacerbated when you introduce the salary cap. So, yeah, I mean, that is the case. I mean, some players played their last game for the Stars in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, who that is becomes a more pressing question, and one that we'll all learn together over the next month or so as free agency hits and those decisions get made. But that is what it is, and that's kind of what it's always going to be. It doesn't matter if you miss the playoffs, finish in the Final Four, win the Stanley Cup. No team comes back exactly the same. The one thing I will say about the cost that Jim Nill paid to make those moves that you were talking about, oftentimes, especially when it doesn't end in a championship, retroactively you go back and you look at the cost. And that's a fair thing. That's how every trade, every deal has to be judged. But I think that Jim has done a masterful job of building this team for the present and for the future. Because even though there are going to be tough decisions, and even though they fell 7 wins shy of the Stanley Cup, and even though it cost him, a lot of draft capital and first-round picks that he doesn't typically part with, you have an incredible core that is under contract for a long time. So as difficult as some decisions are going to be, you have Miro Heiskanen, you have Rope Hintz, you have Wyatt Johnston, you have Mikko Rantanen, you have Esa Lindell, you have Jake Ottinger, among others, all under contract for a long time. Then you have team control going further on guys like Thomas Harley and Jason Robertson as you make those decisions, and they'll need new contracts, but they're still under team control, which make them more valuable. So there are veterans on expiring deals, and those are going to be some of the questions that you asked. But this team, even in the face of some of these difficult discussions and contract situations, they've got a nucleus and they've got a talent level that is locked up that I think would be the envy of most teams in the NHL. And I think Jim has earned the trust that he's going to figure out how to work within that and within the parameters to keep this team a contender going forward.
This is now 3 years in a row the Stars have been to the Western Conference Finals but didn't advance. Pete DeBoer is in the midst of a terrific coaching career. Yes, there's a little controversy over the Ottinger thing, but that will disappear into the rearview mirror. As fantastic as his record is, does he start next season a bit under the microscope?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to Pete, the way I feel about a lot of people, this isn't a DeBoer specific feeling that I have. I think that there's a narrative in sports, and I think about a number of people who, had never won a championship, and be it coach or be it player, they've never won a championship. And so sometimes they get labeled as, players, coaches that can get you there, but not necessarily over the hump. And I think that everybody, literally everybody, by definition, can't win the championship until they win the championship. I remember Peyton Manning, not to date myself and go way back, but that was always the knock, right? And sometimes you bump into some really good teams. And in a 32-team league, when one team wins the championship, that's a hard life to live, because 31 teams are going to be disappointed however far they got. I think I would add that to a list of, tough ways to assess what was going on. I think in one area, the Stars are so fortunate that getting to the Western Conference Final and not advancing can be considered the level of disappointment that it was. You know, Norm, as well as I do, that if you run the clock back a decade and a half, when this team was mired in bankruptcy, the thought of 3 straight trips to the conference final, it felt as fictional as flying cars. And I think that it's a testament to what this organization is right now. But there's always going to be tough decisions when your level and your bar is raised. And I think that, Pete said it himself. They all look at themselves, right? Like every player in that room, every coach, every front office executive, they're all looking at every aspect, because what's the one little thing that kept them from advancing beyond where they've been these last 3 years? And I think that that's probably the never-ending discussion that happens behind closed doors of every organization when you're not the one of one that is the last team to win their meaningful game.
Joshua, thank you for your time. Continued success to you, and congratulations on finding your hockey home in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Okay, I'm not a cook, but my beautiful Mary is, and I must tell you that we've fallen in love with OPA seasonings. That's OPA, O-P-A. Make healthy meals that taste wonderful. OPA's all natural. We use it on meat, fish, chicken, salad, veggies. Just sprinkle, cook, and enjoy. And we found a little OPA goes a long way. Order your OPA now from the website opafoods.com and use the promo code NORM, that's me, and get 10% off your order. Delicious meals, all natural, and save some money. What is not to love about OPA seasonings?
What do you want from your favorite restaurant? Fantastic personal service, a cheery, welcoming, spotless atmosphere, and great food. The primest of beef, wagyu and lamb, incredibly fresh seafood, lobster, salmon, shrimp. Hall of Fame food from a Hall of Fame restaurant. 2 locations of Bob's Steak and Chop House, the original Bob's on Lemon Avenue, and the gorgeous new Bob's at Craig Ranch McKinney.
Today's episode brought to you by Fluent Financial, Retire Sooner, Better Lifestyle, by Bob's Steak and Chop House, and by OPA Seasonings. Savor the flavor in your food.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Just Wondering. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, hit follow, and then a fresh new episode will be delivered right to you. And should you know other people who might enjoy it, please share it with friends. The executive producer and sometimes on-air talent of Just Wondering is my wife, Mary Gans. The producer is Mike Matern. The technical director is IndyCar Tim Hand from FanStream Sports. We really appreciate your being with us. It's just fun to do, and I hope it's fun for you too. And realize that every day, I'll be just wondering about something.
And I'm Mary Hitzges, and I'm just wondering.